Thank you, Mario. That's indeed a very good value proposition, because I can tell you in Brussels since 3 weeks we already have got autumn. Yeah, and not the nicest part of autumn. Rain, rain, rain. Just this week it's a bit more sunny, but still pretty cold. So let me welcome you here from the European Commission side. I'm Max Lemke. Most of you know me, but nevertheless, I'm the head of unit responsible for coordinating the Commission policy on digitizing European industry. I will say a little bit more about that in a minute. I would say this is an event, this is already the 4th in a row, but it's the biggest one of those, and I hope we want always to become better, the most successful one. We were in Berlin 4 years ago, together with the German ministry who hosted us back to back. Then we were in Brussels together with the Factories of the Future Research Association, because I4MS is focusing on manufacturing. Then last year we were in Amsterdam, back to back with Smart Industry of the Netherlands. And this year we are very happy to be in Madrid, back to back with the Industria Conectada 4.0 event that you had yesterday. So we appreciate being back to back with national events, because we can only add value on European level. It's important that the basic work is done in the member states, and whatever can be done on member states and regional level should be done on that level. Europe should only come in when we have something to add. So I would like to thank you again for hosting us here, for all the colleagues in the ministry, Fernando and his team, to make possible that we are here in this event. And I must say, this looks all very, very promising and very good. This year, the event is a bit bigger than before, because we have put already 2 initiatives together. I4MS, ICT Innovation for Manufacturing SMEs, which is a digital innovation hub initiative. You hear about it all day, so I will this time not spend 10 minutes in defining it. And we have the other one, but it focuses on manufacturing, and in particular on the manufacturing process and how to digitize it. That's a strong focus. We today have also here the Smart Anything Everywhere initiative, an initiative that started a couple of years later, but that focuses on digital components and systems in products, like in IoT, in CPS, cyber-physical systems. So it's more product-oriented, whereas I4MS is more process-oriented. I4MS is focused on manufacturing. Smart Anything Everywhere is a bit more narrow on the technology side. It's primarily on IoT, cyber-physical systems type technologies, but it's much broader on the application side. So we have kind of a horizontal and a vertical scheme together here. We have, I mean, this is part of the European Digitizing Industry Initiative, so I would aim that next year we could go to another member state back to back with one of their initiatives, but we could broaden the scope and have the other Digital Innovation Hub initiatives that the Commission has managed by DG Connect also part of this event. So I would like to make it, to expand it a little bit. And as we have done a lot of widening activities towards regions with industrial activity that are so far not having digital innovation hubs, simple terms, the white spots on the European map, I would not mind if an event next year could as well be in one of the member states that are a bit less advanced, but that are now also getting on board. So that's a bit my first. Now, Sylvia, I don't know. Which one do I have to push? I got it. So let me give you a bit of an introduction of digitizing European industry. It's a strategy which is part of the European industrial strategy. You may have heard about the State of the Union speech of President Juncker last week. There was a communication by Commission to Council and Parliament coming with it on an industrial strategy for the European Union. The digital industrial strategy is part of it. Digitizing European industry is a major pillar in that European industrial strategy. So it's a key part, and what is one key message there is we on the European side want to add value. We don't want to replicate what member states do. Member states do it very well. We just want to bring where we can bring value. And we will spend all day today on the left uppermost box that I put a bit in front. That's on setting up a pan-European network of digital innovation hubs. It's not on setting up anymore because we have got it, but in deepening it. So that is basically on the message, digital transformation is for everybody, so we have to make sure that the digital game changers get into every business. And yesterday in a speech I gave an example of even the craftsman may have to look into digital transformation, because there may be service providers in the future who provide his services and he's just a contractor to them and would not have direct contacts with the customer anymore. And most craftsmen I know, at least in my home country, would not like that. They would like to have their own business. So they may have to work together, join forces on a digital platform on how to market their services better than just being individual. Yeah, so it is for everybody. So digital transformation is for everybody. We see a lot of that today, so I don't go into detail. On the platforms, that's the platform business, digital industrial platforms like AutoSAR, industrial data space, or other platforms that come up in the digital industrial space. We have a strong initiative. We spend 300 million euros over the next 3 years on that to support this platform building on European scale. Time today doesn't allow me to go into more detail, but if somebody's interested, we can discuss in the break. Next, I would like to mention the regulatory framework, and last week's State of the Union address was quite important to that respect. We want to make sure that we get rid of the barriers that are in our way for digital transformation, but on the other hand, make sure that we do it in a socially responsible way. So when we look at autonomous systems, we want to make sure, yes, we will lose some jobs, but we have to make sure that we also help creating the higher level jobs and help developing the skills for the higher level jobs so that the net effect is positive. Yeah, so and I think we should not just wait for this happening, but we have to anticipate it and work on it before. So we had two major communications last week, one on, and that was published on Tuesday this week then, from the State of the Union last week, on cybersecurity, and there in particular the issue of certification comes in to, you know, that a system is as secure as its weakest component, so it's important when you pull your systems together that you are sure that the components are secure. So certification on that would help, and we have increased the mandate of the agency ENISA for getting more involved in that. Second, we are building a network of competence centers for security, and one big center in the center of that, so that we can build up and reinforce our competences in Europe on that. Another topic that is, I think, important for many of you, that's on data, free flow of data. While we had 2 years ago the General Data Protection the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, which was for personal data, we have now made a communication to Council and Parliament in which we suggest to extend that to machine-generated or non-personal data. And that is in particular related to the flow of that data across Europe, so that you can use it everywhere in Europe, so what we call a European data space, but it also doesn't allow any more unnecessary localization. So we would have the free flow in Europe. That's the suggestion by the Commission. I know that not every member state is fully on that line. There is still work to be done, but that's why we have communicated that. And on the skills, just to complete in that box, the last box there, we have started a digital opportunities scheme. We talk about it a bit later today, but we propose that like Erasmus Plus grants for students visiting other universities across Europe to build up their digital skills. And for this digital opportunities scheme, we see digital innovation hubs as good hosts. So we would like to make a value proposal for you, how you as digital innovation hubs could get involved in this scheme and become hosts of this scheme. This scheme is launched this autumn, so it's a very hot issue on the table now. Now, Digitizing European Industry is governed by the platform of national initiatives that 15 member states are part of, and This is increasing. We hope to get to 20 or more by the end of the year. We have two pillars in digitizing industry. One is to reinforce the competitiveness of digital technologies. That's what all the public-private partnership and the Excel joint undertaking do. And then the other pillar, which is to ensure that any industry in Europe, and that's important, big or small, wherever situated, whatever sector, can benefit from digital innovations. Yeah, that's in short. Now, what works very well with Spain is how we see our different roles. And Mario has explained what the Spanish program does, and I would just like to say, for us it's very important that this is brought together. The member states and the regions are there to building up and strengthening their national and regional structures of digital innovation hubs. It's not a European role. We in Europe cannot do that. Not only because of money reasons, we don't have the links into your ecosystems. We are there to help where it helps to network, where it helps to work together. And that's why we also went into our programs and have been much more rigorous in this program already and in the future ones. Experiments that are paid by Europe should have a European dimension. So that mostly means being cross-border. Because if it's national, Europe doesn't need to fund. The national initiatives can do that. Particular attention is to SMEs, but it's also to access to technologies and experimenting with technologies. Some of these facilities are very expensive, so it's important that we can do that across borders and help each other. So with what Mario has presented, what I'm saying today, and what you learn here, you see that this works very well with Spain, but also with some of the many of the other member states who have already digital innovation hub initiatives. Now, on a digital innovation hub, I would just like to say that I don't want to be religious on the definition. Member states, regions define what is a digital innovation hub. So for me, the most important thing, a competence center either on digital technologies or on how digital technologies can use in application is the core. But then there are many things in this blue bullet here which are important, in particular on the economic, on the ecosystem building side, on the access to finance side. That is all important, and we have different geometries of digital innovation hubs. Some are technically oriented, some are more Mittelstand, mid-cap oriented, like the German initiative. Some are application-oriented, like the Smart Industry, more application-oriented, like the Smart Industry Initiative in the Netherlands. But all of them provide support to startups, SMEs, and mid-caps to master their digital transformation. All of them have competence centers at the core, variable geometries. They have different service portfolios. Sometimes they are one organization, sometimes they are several working together. So I don't want to be religious about that, and I don't want to give a precise definition, because that's not how I see the European role. We build on and expand on what we have. You'll hear a lot about that today. This is just a short snapshot. On I4MS we have committed so far 140 million euros, 125 hubs, 450 experiments, 80% with a cross-border dimension, 80%. 560 contractors, 406 out of them industrial, 84% of the industry are SMEs or mid-caps, and we have a balance, 50% are users, and some others are also on the provider side, because we also have those SMEs that provide services in terms of digital transformation. And we have covered 29 member states and associated countries. With associated countries, I mean those associated to the framework program. Smart Anything Everywhere is a bit newer, 62 million, 100 hubs, 285 experiments, 250 contractors. Also high SME participation, 70% SMEs, still not as broad. But we get there. It's one generation later that we started Smart Anything Everywhere. Now, what I would like to announce, and what the colleagues from the Joint Research Center will explain today, is the Digital Innovation Hubs catalog. We have committed to have a catalog available on the web where you can see what your colleague Digital Innovation Hubs do. This catalog is online since yesterday for this event, and you can now go into it and see what they do. It's still not complete. It will probably never be complete. And when it is complete, it will already be obsolete for some of them again, because it's very dynamic. What we try here is to make sure that these hubs show their competences. I mean, we don't want to say, yes, you are a hub, you are not a hub. But we tell them, you want to show your competences by supplying several success stories with which you prove that you are a good digital innovation hub. Now, if I look into Spain, we got into 50 of these hubs. Mario has told 46, so we are probably in the same ballpoint. And we have also got some suggestions from the regions which we took into account, so we differ by a couple, but I think this is going in the right direction. We have in our coaching program for industrial regions that are not yet involved, we had 6 hubs in I4MS that were coached in the last program. And when I come to that program, you will see there was an event yesterday that was the closing event of the mentoring and sponsorship program for such hubs, promising hubs in less developed regions. We had 29 hubs there, and the success we see, 18 of the coached hubs were already in the last call for I4MS, and many of them are involved. Many are now in the national initiative, so we see them becoming hubs. We have an ongoing call on that. Ongoing at the moment, we would coach in Eastern Europe. This is money that we got from the parliament, from the parliamentarian Mr. Negrescu, who is now the Minister for Europe in Romania. And he gave us 2 million, 1.8 million to coach hubs in Eastern Europe, in the EU 13 countries who last joined the European Union. And as he is from parliament, we could even do that specifically for that region. In the framework programs, we are not allowed to do that. We would not do that to favor certain countries, but with this parliamentary money from the parliament, we could do. There is a call open until I think 26 October. It will be announced in detail today. So if you know any centers or any organizations in the EU 13 you want to get involved, yes, this is the time now. And in 2019, at deadline to April 2019, we are putting 8 million euros on the table for one large project or two that help these hubs to accede to the network of digital innovation hubs. So we are following this up with new actions for the future. Now, I have 2 slides now, investments that I would spare for the panel that I have later today, and just conclude here that this is an interesting day for us because we bring all the major actors together. We discuss in several panels which are the lessons learned and the biggest achievements of your engagement in the 2 initiatives. We look at the experiments and the successes, but we also look at the hubs and what role the hubs play. How do you see the role of the EU? How do you see the role of the regions? And I would like to raise one point even more as a kind of a new dimension, not new, but something that we highlight a bit more. How can digital innovation hubs proactively support digital skills development? Our new commissioner, Mrs. Maria Gabriel, has made that as one of her key topics in the remaining 2.5 years of the term. And I think that makes sense because makes a lot of sense because skills may be in our way on our digital transformation in the future, because we may not have the right amount and the right level of skills available in Europe. So it's an important point. And digital innovation hubs naturally develop skills. When you train your SMEs on new technologies, you automatically do skills development. So you are part of that game. I would also like to raise later today the sustainability issues of digital innovation hub and how to involve better investor communities to help companies to invest in their digital transformation, because getting money for software development or getting money in an SME for changing your system and not just buying a robot or buying a computer is extremely difficult to get, because banks associate higher risks with that than in just buying a robot or so. And I would like to also discuss that a bit in the final panel today with you. So thank you very much again for being here. Thanks for Spain and Mario to host us here, and I hope you have a good event. Thank you.